Never, ever back. Heart hard. The love that felt safe until it didn't. The night Zaretha Vale walked away, she wasn't crying. She was smiling. Not because she was happy, not because she was free, but because something inside her had finally gone quiet. And when a heart stops screaming, it starts thinking. Stay with me, because what happened next wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was precise. And by the time he realized what he'd lost, it was already too late. Before the break, the illusion. Zaretha Vale loved in a way that didn't ask for witnesses. No public declarations, no dramatic ultimatums, no love meant for applause. She believed the strongest bonds were built in ordinary moments, shared meals, quiet sacrifices, late nights when the world wasn't watching. And that belief shaped everything about her. People trusted Zaretha instinctively, not because she demanded it, but because she never abused it. She remembered details, protected confidences, showed up consistently. So when Cairo Knox stepped into her life, he felt safe. Not exciting, not overwhelming, comfortable. And comfort can be dangerous. Cairo admired her steadiness, her ability to listen without interrupting, her patience when things didn't go his way. He called her grounding, called her rare. And Zaretha, who had spent most of her life being underestimated, believed him. Because when someone finally sees you, you don't question their vision. Building him up. Cairo had ambition, not the reckless kind, the curated kind. He talked about legacy, about influence, about building something meaningful. And Zaretha believed in him before others did. She edited his proposals at midnight, rehearsed his pitches with him until his voice stopped shaking, introduced him to people who trusted her name more than his. When meetings went well, he smiled at her first. When they didn't, she absorbed the disappointment so he wouldn't drown in it. She never asked for credit. She didn't need it, because love to her wasn't transactional, it was investment. And like most investors who believe in potential, she ignored early warning signs. The first shift. It didn't start with betrayal. It started with absence. Cairo stopped asking how her day went, stopped noticing when she was tired, stopped explaining delays. At first, Zaretha justified it. He's under pressure. He's growing. This is what success demands. But something felt off. Not wrong enough to accuse, not obvious enough to confront, just quiet. And quiet can be louder than conflict. One evening, while Cairo showered, his phone buzzed on the table. Zaretha glanced at it, not intentionally, not suspiciously, just instinct. A name she didn't recognize. Liesa. No heart emoji, no context, just unfamiliar. She didn't touch the phone, not because she was afraid of what she'd find, but because she believed trust should be voluntary, not enforced. She told herself if something was wrong, truth would surface. She didn't know yet that truth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits. The woman who watched. Zaretha didn't accuse, she observed. She noticed how Cairo angled his phone away now, how he smiled at messages he didn't explain, how he started protecting his time like it no longer belonged to them. And something else changed. He started framing her love as pressure. "You care too much," he said once, laughing. It sounded playful, but it landed sharp. Care too much, as if devotion were a flaw. Zaretha laughed with him, but internally she archived the moment, because emotionally intelligent people don't explode, they document. The night everything shifted. The confirmation didn't come from confrontation, it came from overhearing. Zaretha arrived home early one night. Cairo didn't hear her enter. She stood in the hallway, keys still in her hand, as his voice floated from the living room. Soft, intimate, different. He wasn't talking about work, he was laughing, the kind of laugh reserved for someone who makes you feel seen. And then she heard it. Not words, tone. That warmth doesn't belong to strangers. Zaretha didn't interrupt. She didn't storm in. She simply stood there and felt something fundamental rearrange itself inside her. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was confirmation. Still, she said nothing because she wanted to understand the full shape of the lie before responding to it. Love versus ego. Days passed, then weeks, and the more Zarita withdrew emotionally, the more comfortable Cairo became, because men who benefit from your silence interpret it as permission. He stopped hiding so carefully, stopped pretending as much. And then came the invitation, an industry event, a networking night, one she had helped coordinate. She hesitated, but something told her to go. The introduction. The room buzzed with conversation and ambition. Zarita moved easily through it, greeting people she'd connected to Cairo long before he ever knew them. Then she saw him. Cairo stood near the center of the room, confident, relaxed, and beside him, Liesa, younger, polished, smiling like she belonged there. Cairo spotted Zarita across the room, hesitated, then made a choice. He walked over, with Liesa still at his side, introduced them, casually. Zarita, this is Liesa. She's been a huge support. Support. Zarita felt the word land in her chest, not like a knife, like a verdict. She smiled politely, extended her hand. Liesa smiled back, completely unaware she was standing on someone else's sacrifice. And that was when Zarita understood something vital. This wasn't an affair. This was a replacement. Have you ever been told your love was the problem? The question that mattered. Later that night, after the room emptied and the noise faded, Zarita asked Cairo one question. She didn't shout, didn't accuse. She asked calmly, "How long?" He didn't deny it, didn't apologize. He explained. And explanations can be more violent than confessions. "You're intense," he said. "You love deeply. That's not always easy to live with." Easy. That word. As if love were supposed to be convenient. Liesa doesn't expect as much, he continued. Things are simpler with her. Simpler. Zarita nodded, because in that moment she realized something devastating. Cairo didn't betray her accidentally. He betrayed her intentionally. He chose comfort over commitment. And then he blamed her for caring. The moment she changed, Zarita didn't argue, didn't defend herself, didn't remind him of everything she'd done. Because once someone reframes your devotion as a burden, the conversation is already over. She stood, looked at him, and something in her eyes shifted. Not anger, absence. That was the moment her softness left. And softness, once gone, does not return. Never, ever back. From that night forward, Zarita became precise. She stopped offering advice, stopped buffering his mistakes, stopped protecting him from consequences, not out of spite, out of clarity. Cairo noticed. "You're different," he said once. She smiled faintly. Different, yes, but not broken. Finished. Never, ever back. Heart hard. What Cairo never questioned, because success makes people arrogant, was how much of his foundation rested on Zarita's credibility. The introductions, the trust, the quiet endorsements. She had never taken ownership, so he never realized she could withdraw it. And that misunderstanding would cost him everything. Because while Cairo believed he was moving forward, Zarita was stepping back, not to disappear, but to reposition. And when the first deal collapsed months later, he would blame the market. He wouldn't realize the truth until much later. The woman he discarded was the reason he ever stood tall. They say revenge is driven by anger. That's a lie. Anger is loud. Anger is sloppy. Anger burns out. What Zarita felt next was worse. It was calm, and calm people don't make threats. They make decisions. Stay with me, because this is the part of the story where love fully dies and strategy takes its place. The emotional funeral. Zarita didn't mourn the relationship the way people expect. There were no tearful nights on the floor, no dramatic goodbye messages she never sent, no replaying arguments in her head. Instead, she held an internal funeral, quiet, orderly, final. She grieved the version of herself who believed loyalty was always returned, the woman who thought patience could soften anyone. And when that grief settled, something else rose in its place: self-respect, cold, unapologetic, unmovable. She stopped asking why he did it, because why doesn't change outcomes. Leverage does. Distance as a weapon. Zarita didn't disappear. That would have been emotional. Instead, she remained visible, but unreachable. She attended the same circles, spoke to the same people, maintained the same composure, but she stopped filling gaps. When Cairo missed deadlines, she didn't intervene. When confusion arose, she didn't clarify. When assumptions formed, she didn't correct them. And slowly, imperceptibly, things began to wobble, because Cairo had grown used to something dangerous, someone fixing his blind spots for him. Cairo's misreading. Zarita interpreted her silence as maturity. She took it well, he told people. That sentence would later haunt him. He believed her calm meant closure. He didn't realize calm can also mean containment. Because when someone stops arguing with you, it doesn't always mean they agree. Sometimes it means they're done explaining. Liesa's position. Liesa stepped into Zarita's place without knowing its weight. She enjoyed the attention, the invitations, the image, but she didn't understand the ecosystem. She didn't know which relationships were earned and which were inherited. She thought Cairo's rise was natural. She didn't know it was curated. And Zarita let her believe that, because dismantling illusions works best when people build them themselves. The return of old names. Zarita reached out to people quietly, not to complain, to clarify. She corrected timelines, reframed narratives, answered questions that had lingered unasked. She never mentioned Cairo directly. She didn't need to. She simply reestablished truth, and truth, once restored, shifts power silently. People began remembering things differently. Who had made the introductions? Who had first connected the dots? Who had been consistent long before success arrived? Zarita's name resurfaced, not loudly, but enough. The first crack. The first deal fell through on a Tuesday. Cairo was irritated, but unconcerned. Deals fail all the time. The second delay bothered him more. The third cancellation unsettled him. Questions began appearing where confidence once lived. Nothing dramatic, just hesitation. Because hesitation is how trust erodes. Zareta's internal shift. Zareta felt no pleasure watching things weaken. No thrill, no excitement. Only confirmation. She wasn't destroying him, she was stepping out of the way and watching gravity do the rest. That distinction mattered, because revenge driven by ego corrodes the soul. Revenge driven by boundaries restores it. The unexpected message. One evening, her phone buzzed. Cairo. She stared at the screen for a long moment, not because she missed him, but because she wanted to observe herself. Her pulse didn't change. Her chest didn't tighten. Nothing. That's how she knew it was over. She answered. "You've been distant," he said. She smiled faintly. "So have you." Silence. He shifted topics, talked about pressure, stress, confusion. He didn't apologize. Not yet. Because apologies only come when people feel consequences. The beginning of doubt. Cairo started replaying moments, things Zaretha used to handle, that he now had to face alone. He felt exposed, not abandoned, exposed. And exposure is terrifying to people who never built alone. The eventual realization. At another event months later, something subtle happened. People greeted Zaretha differently, warmer, more respectful. Some ignored Cairo altogether, not intentionally, instinctively. And for the first time, Cairo felt it. Something had shifted, not visibly, but structurally. What's worse, losing love or losing respect? Layesa's unease. Layesa noticed too. Invitation slowed. Energy cooled. She asked questions. Cairo reassured her. But reassurance without stability breeds anxiety. She began researching, asking quietly, listening. And what she learned unsettled her. Because history has a way of resurfacing when people stop controlling the narrative. Zaretha's code. Zaretha lived by one rule now. Never explain yourself to someone who benefited from misunderstanding you. She didn't confront, didn't accuse. She let outcomes speak, because outcomes are honest. The second message. Another message from Cairo, this time different. Did you tell people something? She paused, then replied, I told the truth when asked. That sentence landed hard, because truth doesn't require defense. The fear sets in. Cairo began connecting dots too late. He realized how often people had trusted him because someone else had vouched, how many doors opened because Zaretha stood beside him. He had mistaken her quietness for irrelevance, and now he was paying for that error. Zaretha's night alone. That night, Zaretha sat alone, not lonely, alone. She reflected on how close she'd come to losing herself, trying to preserve a relationship that never respected her depth. She didn't feel bitterness, she felt relief, because she didn't have to be smaller anymore. The shift in power. Power rarely changes hands with noise. It transfers when someone stops carrying someone else, and Zaretha had finally let go. Cliffhanger, hard stop. The call came 1 week later, not from Cairo, from someone important, someone who used to trust him. They asked one question: what really happened between you two? Zaretha closed her eyes, not in pain, in certainty, because this time she wouldn't protect him. When silence becomes consequence. Reset attention. By the time Cairo realized something was wrong, it was already too late to fix it. Because collapse doesn't announce itself, it whispers first, and whispers are always ignored until the damage is done. Stay with me. This is where quiet revenge stops being invisible. The question that changed everything. The question came from someone Cairo respected, not a rival, not a critic, an ally. What really happened between you and Zaretha? The room felt smaller. Cairo laughed lightly, waved it off. Nothing dramatic, we just grew apart. The man didn't smile back. That's not what I heard. And just like that, Cairo understood. This wasn't gossip. This was concern. Zaretha's response. When the same question reached Zaretha, she didn't hesitate. She didn't dramatize. She didn't accuse. She stated facts, timelines, decisions, outcomes. No emotion. And that neutrality made her believable, because people trust calm truth more than passionate explanations. The domino effect. People began revisiting old decisions, rereading contracts, reconsidering partnerships, reevaluating trust. Nothing was revoked immediately, but caution crept in, and caution is poison to momentum. Cairo felt it everywhere. Emails unanswered, meetings postponed, smiles that didn't reach eyes, success that once felt inevitable now felt conditional. Layesa's discovery. Layesa did something Cairo never expected. She reached out to Zaretha, not confrontational, not apologetic, curious. Zaretha met her for coffee, not to compete, to conclude. Lyessa listened, and when the truth finished unfolding, Lyessa realized something chilling. She hadn't replaced Zaretha, she had been placed after her on a structure she didn't understand. The shift in loyalty. Lyessa didn't leave immediately. She watched, observed how people treated Cairo now, how doors that once opened automatically required justification, and for the first time, she saw him without borrowed strength, and she didn't like what she saw. Cairo's first apology attempt. Cairo finally reached out properly, not with excuses, with regret. I didn't realize how much you did. Zaretha listened, didn't interrupt, didn't respond emotionally. When he finished, he said only, "You realized too late." That sentence hurt more than anger ever could, because it closed the door without slamming it. The deal that broke him. The deal that was supposed to secure his future collapsed publicly, not quietly, publicly. People speculated, rumors circulated, but Zaretha said nothing, because she didn't need to speak anymore. The structure was already unstable, and now everyone could see it. Cairo's panic. Cairo spiraled. He tried to rebuild narratives, repair relationships, reclaim authority. But authority borrowed cannot be reclaimed once the owner steps away. He reached out again, this time desperate. The final meeting. They met. Neutral ground. No tension, no anger, just clarity. Cairo looked smaller now, not physically, internally. He said, "I never meant to hurt you." Zaretha nodded. Intent doesn't erase impact. He swallowed. "Can we fix this?" She answered calmly, "You already fixed it, just not in your favor." The hard truth. Zaretha leaned forward. "You didn't lose me when you cheated. You lost me when you blamed me for loving you." Cairo couldn't argue, because truth doesn't invite debate. Lyessa's exit. Lyessa left shortly after. No drama, no announcement. She simply stopped answering his calls. She had seen the pattern, and she refused to be next. The aftermath. Cairo stood alone, not villainized, not destroyed, just revealed. And revelation is the most dangerous form of loss, because you can't undo it. Zaretha's peace. Zaretha felt no victory, only peace. She had reclaimed herself. And nothing feels better than standing whole after being underestimated. Cliffhanger. Hard stop. Months later, when Cairo's name came up again, this time as a cautionary tale, someone asked Zaretha, "Do you regret not destroying him completely?" She paused, not because she was unsure. The price of underestimating quiet love. Final reset. Some people think revenge looks like ruin, shattered careers, public humiliation, total destruction. But the most permanent revenge is being forgotten by the person who once carried you. Stay with me, because this ending isn't loud. It's final. The question answered. When they asked Zaretha, "Do you regret not destroying him completely?" She didn't answer immediately, not for effect, for honesty. Then she said, "No, because destruction would have meant I still cared." That answer stayed with them, because it revealed something rare. Zaretha hadn't been fueled by hate. She had been fueled by closure. What people misunderstood. People assumed she'd orchestrated everything, that she'd planned his fall meticulously. But the truth was simpler. She had stopped protecting someone who never protected her. And when protection disappears, reality rushes in. That wasn't revenge. That was balance. Cairo's final realization. Cairo watched from a distance as Zaretha moved forward. New partnerships, stronger footing, unquestioned respect. And only then did he understand. She had never needed him. He had needed her. That realization hollowed him, because regret is hardest when it comes with clarity. The moment he tried again. One final message, not an apology, not a request, a confession. I see you now. Zoritha read it, closed the message, and didn't respond, because recognition after loss isn't redemption. The life she built. Zoritha's life didn't explode upward, it stabilized, which was better. She chose partners carefully, spoke less, trusted slower, but when she loved again, it was intentional and protected. What heart hard really meant. Her heart wasn't cruel, it wasn't closed, it was armored, not to keep love out, but to keep disrespect from entering. Never, ever back. Heart hard. The final parallel. Chiral faded into anonymity, not failure, obscurity, which is worse for people addicted to validation. Meanwhile, Zoritha became a quiet reference point, the one who built it right, the one who didn't beg, the one who walked away intact. The last truth. Love doesn't break you, people do, and when you stop trying to fix them, you finally fix yourself. If you've ever loved deeply and been punished for it, remember this. Softness is not weakness. Loyalty is not foolishness. But once they confuse your devotion for something disposable, you don't fight, you don't explain, you leave. And when you leave without chaos, that's when they feel it. She never went back. Her heart didn't bleed. It hardened. And in that hardness, she found freedom. If you've ever chosen self-respect over closure, comment "never back" below. Subscribe to Red Stories for stories where love isn't weak and revenge doesn't need to scream to be felt, because the quietest endings are often the most permanent.